All right, let's jump right into this explainer and uncover the gritty reality behind the Indiana Fever's flashy offense. Look, if you've been following the Fever this season, you already know all about the sold-out arenas, the record-breaking TV ratings, and those highlight reel plays that have totally taken the league by storm. But behind the scenes, behind closed doors in those grueling practice sessions, there is a much different, much more physical story unfolding. Today, we're using the data and the film to break down the true engine of this roster. So what's the actual secret ingredient to a superstar offense? You might immediately think it's Caitlin Clark pulling up for deep threes, or Kelsey Mitchell just blowing past defenders in transition. And yeah, that elite shot making, that's the headline. But the real secret ingredient, the thing that actually lets those playmakers operate, it's relentless, bruising, unglamorous defense. It's the dirty work. Which brings us to the unsung hero of the Indiana Fever, Lexi Hull. Today, we're breaking down her immense value as the Fever's indispensable defensive enforcer. Now, she might not always be the one leading the nightly sports highlights, but anyone who really understands the nuts and bolts of a winning basketball team knows exactly how vital she is. She is the one making the sacrifices so the stars can shine. Just listen to this incredible quote from Caitlin Clark. She perfectly captures the visceral reality of Hull's game. She said, "I told her she needs to stop falling down so much. She's got this cut on her leg and it doesn't stop bleeding because she's always on the ground." I mean, really think about that image for a second. That is the physical reality of Lexi Hull's commitment. Her physical sacrifice literally leaves her bleeding on the hardwood and she just refuses to take a single play off to let it heal. It's literally 100% effort, regardless of the physical cost. Whether it's those high-stakes, highly competitive practice sessions against male practice squads where she's just diving for loose balls, or during an actual game where she's tasked with guarding the opponent's absolute best player, Hull plays with this reckless abandon. And that kind of fire, it's completely contagious. It inspires her whole roster and sets a standard that nobody is too big to do the small things. Section 1, Anatomy of an Enforcer. Strategic Intensity. Let's dissect exactly what makes Hull so critical to the game plan, because it's not just blind hustle. Head coach Stephanie White proudly describes Hull using a fantastic phrase, a set-it-and-forget-it defender. This is a player you can trust with the absolute toughest defensive matchups on the floor without ever having to worry about their effort or their focus. Hull actually relishes doing the exhausting, thankless work that pumps up the rest of the team. Coach White doesn't have to micromanage her. She literally just winds her up and lets her loose. Her nightly checklist is, quite frankly, grueling. She's picking up the opposing point guard full court, leading the team in deflections, and constantly taking massive physical hits just to draw offensive fouls. Add in guarding the best player and rebounding aggressively from the wing. It's all that invisible work that rarely pops in a basic box score, but it's the exact foundation a championship contender is built on. And despite that incredibly heavy workload, look at what Coach White has to say. When a former college coach asked her if she had ever had a bad day coaching Lexi, White's answer was an immediate no. She praised Hull as the ultimate teammate, someone who covers all the defensive gaps, brings constant energy, and simply busts her butt every single day without a single complaint. For us watching, this is exactly what championship culture looks like behind closed doors. But this season wasn't exactly an easy start for her. She had to battle back from a really frustrating preseason hamstring injury, which meant starting the year coming off the bench. And frankly, the critics were incredibly loud. People were actively questioning her new $1.6 million contract extension, calling it a massive overpay. But she just kept working, got healthy, and eventually forced Stephanie White to promote her to the starting lineup to patch up the team's early defensive struggles. And that brings us to May 20th against the Portland Fire. This game was absolutely the turning point for Hull this season. Her defensive genius was on full display, instantly proving her immense worth and completely silencing those contract critics. Let's break down exactly what happened on one specific, game-changing play. Portland is trying to run a set action to get Carla Leite open, but Hull's film study totally pays off. She anticipates Portland's screen action, steps up right before the pass is even completed, and absorbs a massive hit from the cutting player to force a turnover. That single sacrifice completely flipped the momentum of the quarter and sent the Fever bench, everyone from Stephanie White to Caitlin Clark, into an absolute frenzy. Section 2, Statistical Defensive Impact, the analytics. Because Hull isn't just an eye-test hustle player. Her impact is deeply validated by the underlying numbers. According to the analytics group Help the Helper, the Fever's defense gives up 7.7 fewer points per 100 possessions simply by having Lexi Hull on the floor versus sitting on the bench. When she sits, the team struggles to get consistent stops, but when she plays, the entire defensive structure tightens up. That ranks in the 70th percentile across the entire WNBA. So the crucial takeaway here is this staggering number, plus 17.5. The Fever have a plus 17.5 net rating with Hull on the court. That means they outscore opponents by 17.5 points per 100 possessions when she is out there doing the dirty work. That is the highest differential of any player on the entire Indiana roster. She is quite literally the glue holding the winning minutes together. Moving to Section 3, the perfect complement, lethal two-way threat. What makes Hull so unique is how she proves to be the perfect offensive partner for superstars like Clark and Mitchell. You can't just be a defensive specialist in today's WNBA. You have to punish teams on offense too. And she does exactly that. She forces opposing teams to respect her spacing by shooting a blistering 47.4% from three-point range. If you leave her alone to go double-team Caitlin Clark, she's gonna make you pay, making her a lethal two-way threat that opposing coaches absolutely dread game planning for. She actually ranks second in the entire league, just behind Marina Mabre, in offensive net points from the corner. By being so deadly from that spot, she completely prevents defenses from swarming the Fever's primary playmakers. She basically props open the driving lanes for Mitchell and gives Clark the breathing room she desperately needs to operate. And hey, remember that Portland game we talked about earlier? The one where she drew that massive charge? Well, she also went 4 for 4 from deep and shot 100% from the field in that very same game. It actually went down as the second most efficient 15-plus point game in the entire history of the WNBA. So much for that contract being an overpay, right? As Hull herself points out, this tenacious defense is the absolute foundation of her game. It's not something she just picked up yesterday. It was ingrained in her since childhood by her dad and her early coaches, who always made sure to start every single practice with defense. Today, she perfects that foundation through endless film study, learning player tendencies so she can predict opponents' actions before they even happen. It really all comes back to this selfless attitude. Caitlin Clark sums it up perfectly. She doesn't care how many points she scores. She's always making an impact. Her willingness to do the invisible dirty work, to sacrifice her body, and to play through the cuts and the bruises, that is exactly what allows the rest of the Indiana Fever roster to shine so brightly under the spotlight. Watching Lexi Hull sacrifice her body night after night, leaving it all out on the floor, leaves us with one really compelling question to ponder. As the Fever look to transform from an exciting young team into a true dynasty, is this bruising, bleeding enforcer exactly what Indiana needs to finally win it all? I hope this explainer helped you see the game within the game. Thanks so much for joining me, and definitely keep your eyes on number 10 next time the Fever take the court.